Good morning, everybody. My name is Jessica Uphoff, and I'm so excited to be here today. Our team hosted an event on March 14th that was called Script-Tacular. And that event, we had a lot of presenters, Denver's elite agents, come present to us and show us how they're handling very relevant, very difficult conversations out in the marketplace with these market conditions that we're in. And on that day, I mentioned that we weren't going to go super granular on some of the mechanics of what we were talking about, but I did promise that we would go pretty granular today in some of the topics. So my intention today is to chat with you with one of my dearest friends and business partners, Brooke Cartwright. And she and I are going to do a deep dive into the mechanics behind a multiple offer situation, and also just some things that we're doing personally to continue to thrive and have success in our current market conditions. So Brooke, welcome. Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. So I am going to share, Brooke, our PowerPoint because it's going to keep you and I on task here. And I just want to kind of let the audience get to know you a little bit. So this is Brooke Cartwright. We had a speaker, an elite agent in our last event, Script-Tacular, named Grant Muller. And Grant and I have worked together for a decade. And Grant runs a very successful business with his business partner, Brooke Cartwright. And they did $48 million worth of production, just the two of them and an assistant last year in 2022. The Grant Muller Group is unique in the fact that they're a small, lean and mean team. They are 100% referral based, and Grant does all the listings and Brooke does all the buyers. So I know some teams are set up that way, but they literally have their own specialties. And so Brooke and I get the opportunity to work together a lot because she's handling all of the Muller Group's buyers. Some of their accolades are listed on the screen. Their clients are happy with client satisfaction. They were awarded the #3 closed sides for teams of 2 by DMAR in 2022. So they had massive success in a very difficult year in 2022. And Brooke is going to share with us some of her secrets of how she continues to get people under contract amidst the conditions that we're in today. A little bit about me. I run the concierge team of Neo Home Loans here locally in Denver. I've been in lending for 20 years. My team and I did about $184 million worth of production in 2022. I am one of the top 75 female loan originators in the United States, and I'm 100% referral based. I support my real estate partners and builder partners here locally in Denver. And we've got a unique way that we go about the business, which I'm excited to share with you guys a little bit about that today. When we look at what's going on right now in the marketplace, I always explain to my clients, we're in a mixed market right now. We've got some houses sitting on the market for 4 weeks without any offers that may be overpriced because we have a seller that has expectations from a 2021 or 2022 sale. And then we have other houses that a sign goes in the yard and we've got 9 offers on the house in the first weekend. So really leading clients through this environment and also appeasing to the fear that they have because of the media, high interest rates, a looming recession, all of the factors that are playing into today's market. It's important that we understand what it takes to lead our clients. And that was one of the things that Jordan Terrell and I talked about on March 14th at Script-Tacular, is that today's realtor, what's required of them and lender is to lead their clients. And so today, Brooke and I are going to talk to you about the ways in which we're leading our clients to make them feel comfortable, take great care of them, and successfully get them under contract with a home that they love and make sure that they have a very enjoyable process along the way. What we're going to talk about is how we work as a team, how we educate our clients, what is the process that we do to get people under contract with the varying things that's required in today's market, and what role each of us play in this multiple offer situation. The first thing I just want to talk about is the team. So in my opinion, it takes a very good team, realtor and lender, in order to be successful in today's market. If you're a amazing real estate agent, but you have a lender that is not able to help you convert or help you ease the fear and tell a story to the client and make them feel comfortable to sustain and thrive in our current conditions, then you're only going to have success part of the time. But if you have a very strong agent and a very strong lender, the combo is going to help kind of help that client have the whole picture in front of them so they feel safe and comfortable to do what it takes to be successful in our current market. So, Brooke, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think having the right lender matters. And there's a lot of great lenders out there, but I think there's few lenders that actually are living in what it takes to be successful today. And what I mean by that is lending, I think a lot of lenders see it as a commodity and they just, here, let me quickly pre-approve you, give you some numbers. This is what you're qualified to, send you a pre-approval letter. And they leave the agent alone to have some really high level and difficult conversations about the market conditions and what might be required to be successful in the market. So I think, Brooke, if you can just tell us a little bit about why you feel like having a strong lender partner is going to be the secret to help you have the opportunity to get a lot of people the home of their dreams.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that I see the difference between your team and other lenders, a lot of the other lenders just kind of say, here's what you guys are pre-approved to, go out, look at houses, let me know when you need a lender letter, I'll send it over. The difference with you guys is when we're going to write an offer, we might know that we're going to be up against, 10, 15 other offers, kind of know where they're going to be. You hop on a call and you strategize with me. So we can kind of talk about, if we need to do an appraisal gap, what we need to do within there, and it's, you have their finances and I don't. So I need, you to help me with all the specifics on really where we can be financially with them. And then going back to them and getting a little more specific on maybe different loan options that would help them to get the payment down to where they're going to need to be to feel comfortable. The stuff that I don't necessarily know how to do, and I stay in my lane. And that's why, you and I really strategize on the call together when we are writing an offer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that strategy, you nailed it. Like, I think a good lender should strategize with the agent at the time that they're writing an offer and should strategize with the client at the time they're getting pre-approved.
Yeah.
So the consultative approach to lending, where you're like, okay, where do you want to live? What do you want to accomplish? What payment do you want? How much cash do you have to work with? What's really important to you in a home? Like understanding the full picture and then taking all of that data and understanding the market at such a high level to say, you know what you're describing is going to require this. So let me walk you through some of that stuff on a high level today. And then you and I will go more granular as we find a property that you're interested in offering on. And we'll see based on how many offers are on the table, how long the house has been on the market, what the listing agent shares with Brooke. We'll be able to go a little bit more granular on some of these things we're talking about on a high level today, specific to this house and specific to this offer. So I think that consultative approach with the realtor at the time of offer and the consultative approach with the client at the time of pre-approval is what helps ease the client's fears and apprehension about our current market, and also helps explain, here's why this is necessary, here's what this looks like. Let me know how you feel about this. What part of this do you feel safe with? What part of this do you have reservations on? And just kind of trying to understand the client's overall perspective about what's going on in the market. Okay. So Brooke, what I watch some agents do, and again, leadership of the client is such a huge topic because in today's world, clients need to be led. Jordan Terrell said, if I'm going to take someone on a hike and I'm going to hike Mount Everest and I let them lead me and I'm the guide, we might fall off the cliff, or we might have something detrimental happen if I don't lead them. So we need to kind of explain to clients, hey, this is how I'm going to show up for you. And this is what I'm going to lead you. And a huge portion of leading the client is making sure that they end up with a lending outlet or partner that is going to do what they needs to happen in our current market, So how do you, because people, with interest rates the way they are today, every client wants the best deal. They want the lowest rate, right? They want the cheapest cost and things like that. And that's their focus, because that's what consumers are wired to focus on. But I believe they also don't have the knowledge about all the other components that are so critical to consider in addition to the cost of the loan. So when a client comes to you, and I know you guys are 100% referral, how do you make them feel safe to try to give us, your lender partner, the opportunity to chat with them?
So I think because we are mostly referral based, there's already that level of trust that they have with us. So when they're coming to us, trusting us, they're usually asking us who we feel like they should use. So typically we'll say, reach out to Jessica and her team. They're amazing. They'll schedule a consultation with you. They'll go over all these different options. And it's really not just a one size fits all loan program. So I think the thing that once they schedule that with you, they really see how detailed you are and how you're really focused on making sure there is a program that really fits their needs, their payment, their situation. We'll also tell them, if they want other recommendations, we're happy to give those as well. But I don't think that you need to tell every buyer, make sure you go through the entire process fully with 3 lenders. You might kind of overwhelm them. So maybe start off with someone. If you feel like you're not a good fit, ask us for more recommendations. We're happy to give that. But a lot of people come back to us and are very happy after their consultation with you.
Yeah, I think I do watch a lot of real estate agents feel this obligation to provide multiple names, which I can totally appreciate. But I look at it as like, okay, they already have their parents in their ear, and they've got their coworkers in their ear, and then they've got the news in their ear, and then they're reading articles that pop up on their, Yahoo Mail, and they already have so much confusion. And I think you give them 3 lenders and you say, yeah, call all 3 and see who's got the best rate. You're basically like, a good analogy I like to use is that I think real estate agents and lenders are like a quarterback and a wide receiver. Like by doing that, you're like lobbying the ball into the air, praying that your receiver is going to catch it. But there's a very good chance it will be intercepted. Because if they end up going with their coworker's lender because you didn't give them enough direction or leadership about who they should call and why, then that coworker's lender, guess what? Hey, you should work with my realtor. My realtor, this one, look how much business they do compared to the one that you've been talking to. And that data is out there, and that is what's happening right now. So by not getting them to someone that you know is going to catch the ball and hold on to it and help you get it into the end zone, you basically are lobbying the ball to be caught and intercepted by your competition. So I think like offering 3 names and telling them, call all 3, see you have a great relationship with, see who can get you the best rate. You're basically taking your paycheck and lobbying it into the air and praying that you'll make your paycheck. And I think that, unfortunately, with the reduction in transactions that are happening right now and are going to happen for the foreseeable future because of our inventory levels, every single referral that we get is precious and gold, and we have to keep it in our lane. And having someone that's going to help you make your client feel safe and help your client win in a multiple offer situation is going to be the most important thing. So leading your client and explaining that is really critical, in my opinion. There is data out there that we can check, production data for lenders and realtors. So I have a system that I use, and I have an example of it on the screen. But basically, when you get a client that comes to you and says, hey, I have a lender, you can actually look up that lender's production. Do they do mostly refinance? Do they do purchase? How long have they been in the business? What real estate agents do they work with? You can actually look up the agent's business partners and how many deals they've done with that partner. So for example, let's say Brooke and I are submitting an offer on a property, and the listing agent has this resource, and they look it up and they're like, and Brooke says, yeah, this is my preferred lending partner. And basically, Brooke and I closed 21 transactions together last year in 2022. And if the listing agent sees that, okay, yeah, 21 deals together, this is her preferred lender, right? They know that, okay, she's being honest with me about that. Let's say we look on here and Brooke and I have done one deal together, and then they're saying, yeah, they have enough money. They have all the funds they need for this appraisal gap. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of sense, is this agent being honest with me? Now we have enough data to help listing agents and buyer's agents be able to do research on loan officers to know how much production are they doing. Just like in real estate with real estate agents, the ones that are repetitively in an offer situation and a negotiation situation, they flex those muscles and they become very proficient at negotiating and proficient on helping their client win. But if they do less business, they only do a couple deals a year, and they just don't have the repetition to become as proficient, they're probably not going to show up the way that Brooke will in the amount of transactions that she does and negotiations that she does. So I think that right now we are in a season where, we need to have the most proficient professionals, in my opinion. And so if you can do a little bit of homework as a listing agent to see which lender is going to be the one that gets this ball into the end zone, and which real estate agent is going to be the one that's going to help get the ball into the end zone, that's how you're going to best serve your seller. And then for you, you want to make sure that you have the best lender helping your client get the ball into the end zone on their behalf and your behalf. And in order to do that, you need to make sure whatever lender they showed up with is going to be the one that is going to serve them best. And being able to take the conversation away from price and rate, and about the reasons that price and rate is important for sure. But this is ultimately even more important, in my opinion, because we have a limited amount of inventory. We're seeing multiple offers on a lot of homes. Interest rates are kind of bouncing around. There are so many different factors going on right now that you need someone leading you. And ultimately, we need to make sure we have the right person leading you in our current market conditions. So Brooke, quick question. When you refer someone over to us, how do you set expectations? Because what we do is different, right? I think what I hear from agents a lot is, hey, call this person. They can pre-approve you in just a few minutes, and then we'll go, look at houses. And I think real estate agents have the expectation that it's super, super fast, that someone can take a loan application, look at a couple documents, and have the client on their way, which is true. But I think the consultative approach, like we've talked about, and a very thorough review of the client's loan documents is a better way to set the client up for success. So I would think if you were to refer to lenders, so-and-so over here that's just a one-man show, doesn't have a team, and doesn't do the consultative approach or the thorough review of the loan file, or you refer our team, which is, we're a business, like we are like a machine that pre-approves people and does consultations, and we run our team where our clients and business partners can expect the same process every single time. How do you help clients understand, hey, this is what you can expect by calling Jess's team?
Yeah. So typically I'll start off and just say, give them a call. But when you call, you're not just having your appointment right then. So they'll call you back, they'll schedule a time, ask you some questions. And then, you really do sit down with them, and go through everything. And it is a consultation. You don't just have them send their documents in and then email them back and say, you're pre-approved to this price. It's a very different type of situation where they send all their documents in, and then you go over it so that they see their different options. They see what they can do instead of just rates are 6.75 and here's what you're approved to. That can be a scary situation for someone to just get a pre-approval letter back and just kind of see like the interest rate and what they're approved at. So I think I really, kind of explain that you guys will go over the different situations to really help them be in a situation that makes them feel comfortable. And I honestly think that's why, in the end, you do win these clients because you show them that they actually can make it work where they feel comfortable.
Cool. Yeah, in this consultation appointment, what our team tries to focus on is we take each client and meet them where they are. Let's say they're a first-time home buyer and they've told us we're going to buy in the next year or two. I'm okay, cool. This is the path or the plan that we're going to put forth for you. Or we meet a client that has a house to sell and they want to relocate to a new home and they have a 3% interest rate on their current home. And they have trepidation about that because they're worried that it's not going to be affordable to them to be able to get more space for their family. We set up a path for those people and show them a plan and the why behind it. It actually does make sense for you to do this. So I think we take each client, we look at their individual goals. Why do they want to move? And we lead them down a path where we present them with opportunities and options that will help them feel comfortable and also help them understand why real estate is such a powerful investment. I think that's an area that some lenders don't focus enough time on teaching clients about appreciation and teaching clients about building wealth through real estate. And I think that if it's just like, here's a loan estimate and an interest rate and a payment, and that payment is $1,000 higher than the client feels comfortable with, that's not how we're going to get clients in our car willing to compete in a multiple offer situation. We need to meet the client where they are and give them tools and options to feel safe. We need to pick up on those things that they don't feel safe with in the consultation and then meet them there and say, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? And so I think this pre-approval appointment consultative approach is the way in our new market. I also think that teaching people about multiple offer situations up front so that we're not scrambling when we're writing an offer to teach them about appraisal gaps and removing contingencies and going over list price and things like that is so important. So this is a slide I go over in my consultation appointment when I'm in a multiple offer market. And basically, we've been in a multiple offer market for a very long time. Up to from 2013 to 2019, I would explain to my clients, basically, when you're in the compression phase of our market, which is end of January to end of May, that's our multiple offer season. And I would teach my clients these principles back then. And then during the pandemic, when we were in a multiple offer market for the majority of the pandemic, I was teaching my clients about these things. And I'm showing them data. I'm basically showing them, here's how many active units we have on the market. This is the month of inventory that we have in your price point. This is if you look at the historical data of close to list price ratio, like basically when in January of 2022, we had 1,000 units on the market. That was it. And if you notice what happened in January of 22, people were having to pay on average somewhere between 4 and 8% over list price in that compression phase of the market. So I'm showing them data to support the why behind all of this. And I'm saying, sometimes you will find a house that's been on the market for 2 weeks and you're the only offer, or there's 2 offers. And this is what that might look like. But if you find the prettiest, shiniest penny that hit the market yesterday and your agent calls and there's already 3 offers and there's 15 showings scheduled this weekend, if you want to try to win that house of your dreams, there is a methodology to it, and I'm going to teach it to you today. You don't have to do any of this stuff. But if you don't know what's out there for you to do in terms of your levers to successfully win in a multiple offer situation, you're not going to be able to have success if you don't know about these things. And yes, I could put it all on Brooke and be like, okay, Brooke, this is what they're pre-approved to. But for Brooke to explain it by herself in the car while they're looking at properties about going over list price and offering appraisal gap and inspection, it feels so overwhelming all in one setting while they're looking at property. And it kind of rains on their parade a little bit, in my opinion, while they should be excited looking at houses. So put it on me and allow me to do it in such a way where I'm already intuitive about their fears and their apprehensions before I get to this slide, because I've asked a lot of good questions and I kind of like I'm understanding what's valuable to my client and understanding what my client's fears are. So I'm treading very carefully before this is actually the last slide in my entire presentation I go over. And they already have heard why real estate is an amazing investment. And I'm showing them data on the county they want to buy in and what the projected appreciation is for the next 5 years, and showing them if you buy a $650,000 house, based on this data, it looks like you'd make $105,000 over the next 5 years. I'm sharing that data with them before I'm hitting them over the head with, okay, you've got to do all these things to win a house. So basically, Brooke and I are going to walk you through these things, and some of them are Brooke, and I tell my client, this is Brooke, this is not me. And then some of these are me, and Brooke doesn't take these conversations on. She says, that's Jess, that's not me. So Brooke and I do a really good job together of staying in our lane and also allowing the expert of whatever that topic is to lead the client about that topic. I'm not going to tell a client what to do on an inspection, and Brooke's not going to tell a client what to do on an appraisal gap. She's going to give me the authority to lead the client on appraisal gap, because appraisal gap can be one that's completely financial. So the first one is offering over list price. And how I say that to a client is, I will never tell you what to offer, ever. That will always be a Brooke thing. And Brooke isn't just picking a number out of a hat. It's a methodical thing where Brooke is talking to a listing agent. She's gathering information from that listing agent, and she's looking at how many showings there are for the weekend. She's understanding how many offers are on the table. She's looking at comparable sales in the neighborhood to see how the listing agent priced this home. And then she's basically taking all of that data and talking to me about the client's comfortability and their payment before she makes a recommendation on price to the client. So Brooke, walk me through how this works in your world. Like how, in addition to what I just said, what do you do when you meet a client, they love a house, they're like, we have to have it, we love this house so much and we want to win it, but we're a little apprehensive because we know there's already 3 offers on the house?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is try to get as much information from the listing agent as I can. You know, if they have no offers, but they still have 30 showings, or if they already have 15 offers, you know, just as much information where those offers are at, and really just how the rest of kind of the weekend looks with where we think it'll be. And always also, you know, it's like, I always tell them, we can go in with a certain offer. I will keep in contact with this listing agent throughout the entire process. So just because we submit an offer right now at this price, you're not locked into that. We can change your offer multiple times, which in a competitive market, I mean, I'll write 4 offers for, you know, a client for that house just to make sure we're on top and we win that in the end. So it's really just figuring out where the offers are at that point, but then keeping in contact with the agent.
Yeah. I also think the offer count determines the percentage or margin over list price, right? So 1 to 3 offers might be, I don't know, 2 to 3% over list, right? And then maybe 5 to 10 offers is like somewhere between 5 to 10 to 15. Like, I think the amount of offers dictates how high above list you have to go. And then you also have to make sure it's not just price, it's the 9 other levers that we're working with here. So if we aren't really strong in the other 9 levers, you know, we could be the highest offer in price and still lose. So I think like understanding the holistic idea of all these different things before we determine our price is going to be really important. I can't tell you how many offers I've won with agents that we weren't the highest price. And it's because we did the rest of these things really, really well. We wrote the strongest offer. So the next one is appraisal gap. We're going to go into appraisal gap in great depth today because I talk about it a lot on social media. I talked about it at the webinar that I did with Jordan. Brooke and I, we're in a groove with appraisal gap with our clients. And basically what I do, and I'll talk about this more when we get into appraisal gap, but I show the client the impact of their appraisal gap before we write the offer. And I give Brooke, okay, Brooke, we're going in, the house is listed at 575 and we're going in at 630. This is what the house would have to appraise for, worst case, for the client to have to come up with any additional money. And so I'm basically reverse engineering the numbers for her and giving her that data. And then she's looking at comps and saying, well, that's impossible. Like there's no way that this house is going to appraise for 590 or lower. So if that's the number, then okay, let's encourage the client, like the likelihood that this appraisal gap is going to require any additional cash is very, very slim. And we do this every time where we have this methodical approach to it and we win. Like we don't, because we've figured out how the formula works and how we help the clients feel safe, how we protect ourselves by doing a thorough analysis of the comparable sales. We are in a position where we win in this appraisal gap situation.
And I think that's one that we are really careful on, just because depending on the impact it could have, depends on if you do full appraisal gap or maybe just appraisal gap down to list price, depending on the effect it could have on the client and what they have to bring. So I feel like that's the one that we're really careful about, that exact number and knowing where we can be.
Exactly. We just work really, really well as a team. And it goes back to that strategy session between the two of us ahead of writing any offer. Okay, next one is inspection. This is another one that I'm like, okay, this is all Brooke. And all I say is just know that if there's, multiple offers on a house, the seller is considering that they don't want to have to dump a bunch of money into their property. So Brooke's going to make recommendations to you on inspection based on how many offers are on the property. And again, I let Brooke handle inspection 100%, and I don't get in that lane with her. The next one, hard earnest money. This is one, I explain the why behind it really well. So I say, the reason that buyers are willing to offer up some portion or all non-refundable earnest money is because in this market, when you're in a multiple offer situation, buyers are forced to make knee-jerk reaction decisions very, very quickly. Like I've watched it happen so many times where they're in the top three. And it's like, if you go to this price, full appraisal gap and waive your inspection, you'll get the house. And the client's like, cool, I want the house. And then they start to sit with those decisions. And they start to maybe have apprehension about their payment and apprehension about the potential costs. And then they go to their inspection and there's repairs that need to be done. And then they say, okay, well, I think at this point, what feels right to me is for me to terminate this one and try again on a different one, or hang tight and wait for the market conditions to shift a little bit, right? So buyers terminate at a higher run rate in these market conditions than they do, when they have a little bit more time to think and a little bit more leverage to get a little bit of what they want too. So basically it leaves the seller in a very vulnerable position where they want to pack up the house, the seller wants to start focusing on moving their belongings out of the house and not having to keep their house show ready. They just want to be done with that part. So when they know they have some non-refundable earnest money, it's a huge commitment to the seller that you are going to close for sure. And so here's what I can do for you, Mr. Buyer. I can get your loan approved and underwriting specific to this house prior to inspection termination, so that you can, at inspection termination, you can look at your loan approval with me. You can look at the inspection report and you can say, okay, I feel safe. And, I know my earnest money is going to go non-refundable after inspection termination, and I'm okay with that. So I think hard earnest money is one of the most impactful ways to help your client win a house. And I think if clients understand very well the why behind it, it's even, they feel more comfortable taking on that risk, especially if they have a good lender that's done a very thorough review of their loan file up front. Our team, the process that we do is we ask for everything that underwriting wants up front. Like we're very, very thorough, but we're thorough because we say to Brooke, hey, we can close in 10 days and we can do non-refundable earnest money, because I've done so much due diligence that I'm not worried about that client's earnest money. Like, I know that the client, we've got the written verification of employment, we've got proof of their down payment funds. Like, we've received all the documents up front that we need to feel safe to say, okay, you can make your earnest money go non-refundable after inspection termination. Do you have anything you want to add on that, Brooke?
I mean, I think when you're writing a competitive offer, it's anything to make your offer less risky. When you're trying to beat out a cash offer that they don't have appraisal, their earnest money is hard pretty quickly. So if you can take out any of those deadlines at the end, that puts you in direct comparison with a cash offer and just reduces the risk of yours, that's how you win. And that's how you beat out cash offers. It's not, cash doesn't always win.
Yeah, for sure. And you have to be very communicative with your lender, with the client. This is a risk, but it's a calculated risk, and you have a great team around you. Like, we're not in the business of losing your earnest money, right? Now we're making this decision together. Brooke and I do this a lot. We've never lost a client's earnest money. So we have a methodology behind it, and we help people feel safe about that risk. And we know what we're doing to get them to the closing table and, not risking their earnest money. The next one's escalation clause. I know escalation clause is a very popular topic in the real estate community, because I put a post on Facebook once that's like, agents, what do you think about escalation clauses? And I wish you could see the commentary back and forth of like people being so opposed to them and people loving them. And I know they can cause confusion when everyone has an escalation clause and things like that, but they are powerful. And I've had a lot of clients win with an escalation clause if the listing agent will allow it. Brooke, how do you figure out if the listing agent, like, you just ask them up front your very first call?
No, I mean, typically, unless they say no escalation clauses in the MLS, I figure it's okay. And I feel like it can make first-time home buyers, or just any buyer, a little more comfortable with going that high. So as long as you go a little bit over and then include the escalation, I just think it allows them to be okay with, okay, I don't want to lose this house, so this is adding a little more of a cushion to protect us. But if we didn't have to go that high, it's not pushing us that high. So I think it just adds a level of comfort to some buyers when they know they need to go that high, but they're still a little apprehensive, but they don't want to lose this house. That's where I think an escalation can really be good.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. And I think a good listing agent will communicate with you if they want you to just give your highest and best, at least that's been my experience.
Right.
So, lease back agreement, the way I explain that is, sellers want their money quickly and they want flexibility beyond closing to figure out where they're going, get their house packed up, etc. Contingencies in our market are tough, so they want to get that house out from under them, the mortgage paid off, their funds in their account, and then they want to go make a non-contingent offer while they're still in that home. So I explain the why behind what the seller's reasonings are. And then I also say, a lot of buyers in a very competitive situation will offer a free lease back agreement. Here's how that impacts you, Mr. Buyer. Like, basically, if we close at the beginning of May, your first mortgage payment is not due until like by July 15th, that mortgage payment's due. So if we close at the beginning of May and your first mortgage payment's due mid-July, like, basically you're letting them live there and you don't have a payment due yet. Yeah, you paid some prepaid interest at closing. I get that. But if I show them their closing costs and their monthly, like all the data about what the house is going to cost them at closing, and I say you don't owe a payment till July, mid-July, a lot of times buyers are like, okay, yeah, and I've got flexibility with my current lease. And, I would say a lot of buyers are very open to this, just explaining the why behind it. And it's one that it really doesn't cost them a ton of money. It's not like they owe a mortgage payment or two while the seller's living there. So once you explain the the logistics or mechanics behind that, I feel like a lot of buyers are more comfortable with that. Title insurance premiums, just explain, hey, you may need to take on some of the seller's expenses. Your title insurance premium for your price point is estimated around $1,700. So if you decided to take that on, that would increase your closing costs by $1,700. Fast closing. Brooke, walk me through fast closing.
Yeah, so as long as our clients have done everything with you, pre-approvals, because you do get that buyer that wants to see a house on Saturday, and then we need to get them pre-approved really quickly. But as long as they've done everything and you've got their stuff, ready to go and you're solid with them. I mean, I think we've done 10-day closings, 11-day closings. And that just puts us, once again, up against that cash. And if we can waive some of those deadlines that the cash doesn't have, that's where we can compete too.
This is another area I think real estate agents need to lead their client, because here is the problem with our current market. There's nothing on the market that I'm seeing that I like. That's what I'm hearing from every buyer, right? So why would I fill out a loan application, pull my credit, upload all these documents if I'm not seeing anything that I like? And so I think that the real estate agent's responsibility at that point is, well, that's even more reason for you to do it. Because here's why. When that one that's your dream home in the dream neighborhood with the yard and it backs to open space and you have to have it and you've been waiting 2 years to find it and it pops up, you might be forced that you need to close on it in 8 to 10 days to compete with a cash offer. And if you don't have all of your ducks in a row ready to go, pre-approved with a lender that can close that fast to beat out the cash offer, you're not going to be able to get that house. So I think that instead of being like, yeah, I understand, I'll keep showing you property without you doing all the lending piece, that is the leadership that I would do if I was a real estate agent. And I know it's a pain in the butt. It's like filing your taxes. Like I just filed my taxes recently and it's a total pain. I get it. Like I don't take what we ask people to do lightly, but I bet you it would take them an hour total, 1 hour of their life. And would you spend an hour of your life to be able to get your dream home when it does pop up? We can even do a soft pull on their credit and still get them pre-approved. Now, when we go to submit the offer, I do need to do the full pull, but that's how we can kind of appease people that are like worried about the credit component. But the fast closings, the fastest closing that the lender can do, the fastest by law we can go is 8 days. And that includes Saturdays and excludes holidays and Sundays. And we will execute that 8-day closing when we're competing with cash when we need to. But the only reason Brooke and I can do that is because Brooke does a great job of setting expectations with her client to do what they need to do up front. And then when they go under contract, Brooke says, okay, you got to be really responsive to Jessica. When she asks you for anything, you get it to her. When they ask you to sign something, you sign it immediately because there's a backup offer potentially on this house. We can't miss. We've got to make every shot on this deal. And so Brooke just does a great job leading her client. So I think that leadership in order to be able to execute and compete with cash is really important. Offering with a large down payment. This is one Brooke and I have been doing for a very long time. I'm sure there's a lot of other lender realtor partners that are doing this as well. But basically I tell my client, I can see all of their assets, right? And most clients are like, I have 80 grand that I'm willing to use to buy the house with. That they give me a number. And I'm like, okay, so that's your down payment, closing costs, et cetera, money, right? And then I'm looking at their loan application as I'm talking to them. And I notice that they have $270,000 total between all of their assets, stocks, retirement, bank accounts, et cetera. And I could document that much money. So what Brooke and I do is we will show a larger down payment. We basically are showing our clients net worth down so that we're not saying, okay, we're doing 10% down. No, we're doing 30% down or 40% down. And we can show all of the asset statements that they have to a listing agent and seller. So we can document funds to close, But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to the client to put less down if they want to once they go under contract. So it's just a way to show a stronger offer. And I'm explaining this to our client up front. I'm showing the real estate agent after our pre-approval meeting, this is the contract down payment, this is the actual down payment. So that is something that I tell my clients, if you're more well capitalized, you have additional money, it's going to serve you up against other buyers that are a little less capitalized. So, and then if a listing agent and seller ask us for proof of funds, we can legitimately prove them. I tell my client, we can't lie about money you don't have. We have to be able to document every dollar of what we're putting as a down payment in the offer.
Well, and I explained that a little bit to them too when we're writing the offer, that you've kind of discussed how much they're going to put down, but you have that appointment with them after they actually go under contract on that specific priced house. So just because they thought they were going to put, 80,000 down, once they go under contract on this house, maybe they do want to put 120 down. So you're not lying about anything. You have the funds, just because you don't have a set price on exactly what you're going to put down when you write the offer. You're being honest.
Exactly. Yeah, again, we would never document down payment funds that the client doesn't legitimately have. But I do think it would behoove other realtor lender pairs to say, hey, they have additional funds. Let's show a stronger down payment because they have it and we can document that. Because if you just put the 5% or 10% down, you're going to get beat out by the 20% down offer that's out there. And if your client has those funds and can document them, then I think it's really important that you help your client win in that area. And then the last one is providing a lender letter from a local reputable lender. We've talked a lot about the lending piece, and this isn't necessarily a Jessica Uphoff commercial, but I do want you to know that by working with someone that's reputable and well-known in the market, that we have a ton of listing agent relationships. So I will say probably at least 20 to 30% of the time, at least, it can be more than that, I know the listing agent pretty well when we're writing an offer. And so I can text that listing agent and call that listing agent, and I can sometimes get additional data out of them because we have a good friendship, because I've been working with them for a long time, because I have a lot of amazing business partners in this market. And so let's say it's Grant's listing and I'm working with another realtor. If I call Grant, who I've known for a decade, and I'm like, hey, Grant, here's what I have. What do you have? And he's gonna talk to me. Now, he's not going to do anything unethical, but he's gonna root for me. And I can promise you, and I know you all know this, listing agents root for the right realtor lender team. So they basically come back to Brooke and say, we like you and Jessica. We want your offer to get accepted. Can you do this to your offer to be equivalent with this offer? And if you don't think that's happening in the market, it is, trust me. So I think having the right lender partner, you allow your client to lead you, and you allow them to chase a rate with an online lender or Quicken or some lender that doesn't have the experience or reputation in the market. It's just a mark against you. So you're going to lose out more often because that listing agent doesn't want to take on that risk, or they kind of try to make someone that they're familiar with, the lender and realtor pair, okay, I know this is a good team. They work together a lot. I've worked with them before. They close on time. They're communicative. I'm rooting for them. And that's happening in the market. And so you have to position yourself with the right partner, with the right relationships and reputation to help your client get their offer accepted. I want to talk about interest rates a little bit. At our Script-Tacular event, we talked about, what we talked about is basically Americans are sitting on just a crazy, amazing interest rate. But if you think about it, a lot of people that purchased a home during the pandemic were kind of forced to buy a home quickly, and they were in a competitive offer situation, and they may have settled for a house they don't love. I've been hearing so many different things from so many different people that they're like, I want to move, but I have a 3% rate. But when I bought this house, there wasn't a lot of inventory on the market. And basically, I want to move. We need more space. We're having another kid. We're getting divorced. Those life things are going to continue to happen. So we have to be able to speak about interest rates in a way that makes them feel heard, but also paint a picture for clients about what's going on with interest rates. What is the scoop behind interest rates? And I talk to a lot of people about interest rates, and there's speculation that interest rates are going to stay high for a very long time. I disagree, and I'm going to go through that with you today, why I think interest rates are coming down in the not too distant future. So this is what I go over with my clients, and I don't promise my clients anything, but I do give them the education that they need about interest rates. So I tell my clients the story, and I'm going to tell you guys the story really quick. And not all of it is probably new, but maybe you can catch a little bit of how I explain it. I try to simplify it so that if it comes up in dialogue with your clients, you can talk about that too. So basically, when we had a global pandemic break out in March of 20, it was very, very scary, as you can imagine, globally to every country. And the United States, how we decided to protect our economy was by lowering our federal funds rate to zero. And the federal funds rate is the rate at which banks borrow money from each other overnight. And the Federal Reserve uses that federal funds rate as a lever to stimulate and tighten our economy. And so basically, they decided to lower the federal funds rate to zero. And not only that, they were buying mortgage-backed securities to the tune of billions of dollars every single month to keep interest rates low. And they did that for way too long. They did it for about 2 years. And that was about probably a year and a half too long, because the repercussions of that are extreme. And that's what we're experiencing now, which is basically, if you think about it, during COVID, Americans were stuck at home. They couldn't travel, so they didn't have those expenditures that they like to have. So they held on to that money. Then they got stimulus money from the government, and money was super cheap. So what do Americans do? They spend money. They're getting HELOCs on their houses. They're buying rental properties. They're buying houses. They're buying cars. They're buying boats. They're buying toys. And basically, our economy got very, very, very hot as a byproduct. The overconsumption of goods and services, basically, the economy got really, really hot, and then we had high inflation. Then, to add fuel to the fire, in January of 2022, the Fed said, oh, we got to stop buying these mortgage-backed securities because we see what's coming. We see that we're going to have high inflation. They were like reacting to what they had already done. And so they stopped buying mortgage-backed securities. And just that made rates go up. But then inflation started going up so fast, and we ended up with interest rates skyrocketing in 2022. And then the Fed decided that they were going to react to that. And so basically the action that they took is, we are going to go aggressively to fight inflation. And the way that they do that, again, is with that federal funds rate. So they hike the federal funds rate by 0.75%. That hadn't been done since 1994, and they did it 3 times in 2022, along with some other rate hikes. So basically, they are fighting inflation fast. Well, guess what happens when they slow our economy down with those rate hikes? Basically, they're kind of putting our country and economy into a recession. Historically, and I show my clients this data, when we're in a recession, rates come down, and all of these rate hikes are bringing inflation down. And we've been able to see these inflation numbers coming down. Are they coming down fast enough? No, we all want them to come down faster, but they are working, and interest rates are projected to come down significantly. I'm telling my clients 6 to 12 months is the timeline I'm giving clients. And then I am offering a free refinance to any client that buys a home with me. And I give them 18 months to use it from the time that they close on their property. And I did that, 1, to help my clients, but 2, to help my business partners lessen the blow about rates and affordability with their clients. I want my business partners to be able to say, when they refer me, hey, I know interest rates are in the 6s right now, and I know that your mortgage payment is likely going to be higher than you're totally comfortable with long term. Here's another reason I think that you should call Jess and her team, is because they are offering to make your mortgage payment more affordable for free. And refinances cost $3 to $4 grand, guys. It's an expensive thing to refinance your mortgage. And so if for your lender to take that on for you and do that for free is huge. Then I'm showing my clients what happens to buyer demand when interest rates fall. And so I'm basically creating urgency. So in the pandemic, we were creating urgency for our clients and saying, buy now before rates go up. We all were doing that, which is true. Like there were so many clients that were going to buy a house during that time and are kicking themselves that they didn't execute and buy a house when rates were in the 2s and 3s. Well, now the urgency that I'm building is you better buy before rates go down. Because when rates go down, basically, good buyer demand is between 6 and 6.5%, and strong buyer demand is between 5.5 and 6. And then below that is it's on like Donkey Kong. So basically, if you don't have the cash to be super competitive and offer appraisal gap and do a quick closing and all the things that are required to win out in a multiple offer situation, you're going to be in a less favorable position than you are now. So I paint a picture for my clients of, based on their finances, how much money they have to work with, what payment they want, what part of town they want to live in, how competitive I think they'll be able to be in the market. I'm giving them a path and saying, I know that your payment is a little high right now, but I'm going to refinance you for free in the next 18 months. You'll be able to utilize that. And if you wait, I don't think you have enough cash to be able to go 50 or 100 grand over list price, like some clients were doing when demand was really, really, really strong. And I think we have an exceptional amount of pent up buyer demand out in the marketplace right now of people that want to buy and didn't. And they're just waiting for rates to come down. So I'm like, don't do what everyone else is doing and wait. Buy now when you can still, maybe you're only two offers on a property. So it's a lot less. You don't have to waive inspection. You don't have to offer an appraisal gap. You don't have to close in 10 days. You don't have to do all the things we just went through. We talked a little bit about what was going on, inflation, the difference between mortgage rate and federal funds rate. Our clients don't know the difference. They're hearing it on the news and saying, oh my gosh, they just raised rates. We need to educate them. That's actually good. That's the tightening of the economy to bring inflation down, which is actually going to bring mortgage rates down. When you hear that the federal funds rate got hiked, it doesn't mean that mortgage rates went up. So I'm just talking about these things with my clients so that they feel safe and comfortable to buy in a higher interest rate environment. I like to tell my clients a story. So I tell them about our free refinance. I tell them about interest rates. So I'm going to share with you, and I hope this works to share my screen. So when I'm building a presentation for a client that's writing an offer on a home, I'm basically showing them, okay, here's your sales price, here's your loan amount, here's a current interest rate, here's your monthly payment. Keep in mind, guys, everyone wants a $3,000 to $3,500 a month payment in today's market. That's everyone's budget. Like even the most affluent people are like, I want $3,000 to $3,500. That is the threshold of affordability in the Denver market. And guess what? Our average price home, which is around this, and this is with what down payment did I do here? A 10% down payment. That's putting them at $4,400, which is almost $1,000 over where they want to be. So this is a very common situation that I'm having this conversation with folks. And I'm showing them the breakdown of today's payment. And then I'm showing them a breakdown of a potential future refinance if they take advantage of my 18-month no-cost refinance. The monthly payment, just kind of giving them an idea. So this interest rate of 4.5% is actually a rate projection. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the Mortgage Bankers Association, the National Association of Realtors have all come out with rate projections that are somewhere between the mid-4s to low 5s. So I'm saying like, this is kind of your best case scenario and this is your worst case scenario. So, I think that you could even buy your interest rate down at the time to this scenario. If rates only fall to 5, well, then you can pay a little bit of extra money to get in this range, to get your mortgage payment about $800 lower than where we started. So I think that giving clients that, telling that story is really, really important, so that clients feel safe that, like, okay, as long as it's like 6 to 12 to 18 months, somewhere in there, we'll have to live on a tighter budget. But if we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, that we'll have $800 coming into our household to make it feel safe, then, that's something that we feel more comfortable with. I had a conversation with one of my business partners. I met with him and his wife last night, and he's a young, sharp dude that I have a lot of respect for. And we were talking about his payment, because he's got like a 3% rate on his current home. He's going to rent it out, buy the next house, and his payment's jumping up quite a bit. And the way that we talked about it is, think about it as you making an investment on, like, you're basically putting $1,100, which is the threshold above where he wanted to be. You're putting that in an investment every month. And then we talked about the 2 houses appreciating, and looking at that projected appreciation of both houses and saying, would you put $1,100 in an account to make 200 grand in the next 5 years? Because if this house is making 100 grand, let's say, and this house is making 100 grand, and now you can make 200 grand in the next 5 years, would you put $1,100 into an investment that you knew you'd have 200 grand in 5 years? Well, I would, if I had it, right? And so when he and I talked about it that way, it was very, it was a lot more comfortable for him to be able to make those decisions. So, all right, now we're going to talk about, is there anything else you want to talk about with rate, Brooke, before I jump on to?
I mean, I think you do a really good job with, in the pre-approval, just showing them their options. Maybe it's a 3-2-1 buy down, maybe it's a 2-1 buy down, maybe it's buying the rate down, but you kind of show them their options. So it's like, it's not like exactly which one I think they're sometimes going to choose either, but just having options with the payment, because I think right now the payment really is the biggest thing for a lot of the buyers. So just showing them where they can be and make them feel comfortable that's really what they need, is just options.
For sure. Yeah, I think when I talk to someone and they want a $3,500 payment and it's coming in at $4,400, I have the tough conversation and I say, listen, there are some houses out there sitting on the market for over 2 weeks with no offers. And they're fewer and fewer to come by as interest rates are falling. It's becoming less and less prevalent. But if you can have a little vision on a house and basically say, okay, this house would need new carpet, paint, etc. It's not the shiniest penny. It's not 100% move-in ready necessarily, but it wouldn't take a lot of capital to get it to look like some of the other houses that are having tons of offers. Maybe we can negotiate a seller subsidy program, which we are going to talk about in depth here in just a little bit. But before we do that, I want to talk about appraisal gaps. So at our Script-Tacular presentation, I had Kendra Lanterman explain an appraisal gap. And if you're interested, we have that recording to Script-Tacular again, if you're interested in hearing how these elite agents in Denver are handling these difficult conversations. But Brooke, how do you explain an appraisal gap? And I know you let me stay in my lane, you stay in your lane. How do you talk about this without getting into great depth with clients?
Yeah. So because I don't know their financial stuff, that's why I really try to make it a little more like open when I am talking about it. So, I just always say, if you offer 50,000 over and we do a full appraisal gap, depending on how much money you're putting down, you might not have to pay any of that extra cash if it doesn't appraise. But then I, revert back to you and say, you are the one that will tell them exactly. But I mean, there's some clients where it can appraise 200,000 under and they wouldn't be paying a penny. So I think the biggest misconception and the thing that you can scare your buyers away with is saying, well, you're going to offer 100,000 over. If it doesn't appraise, you have to have that cash. Do you have that cash? And then they're like, well, no, I'm putting that cash down. But for most of our clients, when it wasn't appraising in the height of the market, they weren't paying a penny.
Yeah, I do think that is. And if those of you that have watched a lot of my stuff, I'm very outspoken about appraisal gap because I listen to a lot of realtors, good realtors, say, if it doesn't appraise, you pay the difference. And that's not necessarily true. And I'm going to explain that in great depth today and show you how I present it to clients. And so I'm going to pull up something that I would go through with a client to kind of explain that appraisal gap. So let me share that real quick. Okay, so let's say Brooke and I are writing an offer on a house that's listed at 625. And so my client's curious about what their monthly payment is and cash to close at list price. So I'm like, okay, here's the house at 625. This is again, this is a 15% down payment for this client. Their monthly payment is $39.37. They need to come up with about 89 grand to close. So what happens if the house appraises at 675? Or sorry, if we offer 675 and we offer an appraisal gap, okay? That is a $50,000 appraisal gap. And so basically, I've restructured the loan a little bit to where now my client, yeah, their monthly payment is a little higher and their cash to close is a little higher, but it's not like they need to come up with 90 grand plus 50 grand, right? And so this one is, yes, there's some impact to an appraisal gap, but the way that I do it is I get a lot of their goals in our pre-approval meeting. And I basically say, oh no, I'm sorry. This is actually 675 without an appraisal gap. I apologize. I misspoke. So this is them offering 675 on the same house, no appraisal gap yet. So basically they have to come up with 96 grand and their monthly payment is 4212. So this is if you offer list price, which we're not going to be able to offer list price today. This is if you offer 675, which Brooke is thinking that's the margin that's going to be required to get your house under contract. This is the appraisal coming in at 625. Okay, so this is the appraisal gap. Notice their cash to close is the same. Their monthly payment is $24 higher. Their interest rate is the same. Their loan amount is the same. This is why we can't explain to people you pay the difference, because my client in this circumstance isn't paying any different amount of cash at closing. And their payment is $24 higher by offering a $50,000 appraisal gap. Okay. So yes, they need more cash to go up to 675 from list price, but that's going to be required if they want to offer on a house that's a multiple offer situation, no matter what. Now, does everyone have to go 50 grand over list? No, but will that happen once we're back into a market where we're seeing 10 offers on every house again because of pent up demand and interest rates that are in the fives? In my opinion, yes. So I think if we can just explain it, how I explain an appraisal gap is I say an appraisal gap is a contractual promise to not renegotiate the cost of your home or the price of your home after you get your appraisal. So by having a lender that shows your client, this is an impact of a low appraisal, and they show the client, this is the impact of a low appraisal, then I think basically it makes the client be like, oh, okay, my payment's $24 a month higher and my cash to close is the same. My interest rate's the same. My loan amount's the same. Okay, I'll offer a $50,000 appraisal gap for 24 bucks a month, worst case. Now, the other thing Brooke and I do is we talk through what do the comps look like? So Brooke, meanwhile, we're strategizing as we're writing our offer, and she's looking at all the comparable sales in the neighborhood. And she's saying, I don't see a comp for under 640. Like, I think that it would be crazy if this house didn't appraise for 640. And then I can say to them, this is the lowest that the house could appraise for before you would owe more cash. And basically, it wouldn't be 640 in this example. So then the client's like, okay, I'll take that risk. because I'm offering this gap or I'm waiving all my appraisal deadlines. Yes, it's a risk, but I'll take that risk. So,
and I think if you're offering over and you don't have the appraisal gap, you're not winning.
yeah, for
You know,
sure.
50 over with no appraisal gap doesn't mean a whole lot.
Okay, let's move on. If you have questions on appraisal gap and you want to understand more, let me know. But I do think the appraisal gap situation, guys, is where we are freaking clients out. We are losing deals. We are losing deals. If it's not easy, like it's easier than we're making it. And clients will be more comfortable if it's presented the right way. Don't lose an offer over an appraisal gap. Get with someone that's going to help advise your client about what does projected appreciation look like. You don't have to worry about paying 50 grand over if this is what's projected over the next 5 years and you intend to stay in this home, right? And if it's not impacting your cash to close and you get to buy a home of your dreams for $24 a month, worst case, and we don't even think it's going to be that bad because Brooke thinks it's going to appraise for 640. Like that strategy that a realtor and a lender have together to make the client feel safe of taking that offer from good to great is what helps the client win.
Fine.
Anything else you want to offer on appraisal gap?
No, I mean, I think, my biggest thing is let you do it. The least that I explain about it and just keep it to a minimum is the better, because I don't recall us really having anyone scared of the appraisal gap when you explain it to them. Yeah. So that's why I really leave the explanation of the appraisal gap up to you, because you can show them the numbers.
And then I can also give them that baseline where they would owe more cash. And then you can say, well, that's never going to happen. Right. Like Brooke and I actually have a client right now where the client's under contract at like 1.4 or something. And our appraisal gap opportunity, I think like the house could appraise at like 980 or some crazy number like that before she would owe any more cash. So we waived all our appraisal deadlines because that was not going to happen. Like we knew for sure that the house that was listed at 1.4 would not appraise for, $980,000. So we waived our appraisal deadlines. And had we not strategized around that and added that component to our offer, we could have lost out to a competitor, which is why we decided to do that. Let's talk about a client that has a house to sell and a house to buy. With that strategy or that situation, how do you talk to those clients? Like what, because ultimately, what they're up against in our current market. How do you go about talking to them?
So, I mean, there is a few options, it kind of depends. I think it really depends a lot on the client. Some clients are super nervous, super stressful. And, if we say you can buy the house, then we'll list your house, you could possibly have two, mortgage payments. That could put them over the edge. But then you talk about the other ones where you guys have been super picky. You're not finding any houses you like. You can write a contingent offer, but on those really popular houses, you're likely not going to get it accepted. There's the double move. There is different options. I really think it depends a lot on the client and really their kind of stress level, because to be non-contingent is where you need to be to win, a popular listing. But I think, the last thing we want is these clients like stressed out of their mind.
Yeah.
So it really depends on them.
Yeah, I think I teach a class that's called DISC. For any of you that are familiar with the DISC profile, I teach about reading our clients and then like catering to them and taking care of them according to their personality type. And in that class, I talk about how 60% of people are high S's. That's their like predominant personality is an S, and they are worriers and they want stability and they want certainty, and they don't sleep at night when anything feels scary. And if 60% of people are that personality and real estate agents just throw out things like bridge loan and HELOC and buy that one before you sell that one, and you don't show them the whole path, and you don't have access to their finances to help them understand that, then I think it is, you're basically setting them up to have that fear, and then they'll lie awake at night, and then they'll call you the next day or a couple of days later and say, we've just decided to stay. We've got a 3% rate. we do want to move, but we don't want to move that bad. And if you're losing people that have a house to sell and a house to buy, I think making sure that you get them over to someone that's going to kid glove that situation. And in my opinion, you give them very, very little information about what their options are, because a lot of those options are, again, lending. So if you can stay in your lane and just refer a really good lender, such as myself, and say, hey, this is a sensitive situation because we're in a really competitive market, and we just have to make sure that we can handle the logistics of this situation with kid gloves to make sure we can get you into your new home and sell your home in the most streamlined and economic fashion. That's how I would explain it. And basically, I'm going to refer you to Jessica Uphoff because this is her jam. We work with all kinds of buyers, first-time home buyers and very affluent buyers that are self-employed, and every level of buyer. But I would say our bread and butter is the move up or move down buyer that has a house to sell and a house to buy, because we have really mastered this space in the industry, in our market. And what I do with clients in our pre-approval appointment, when I know they have this situation of a house to sell and a house to buy, is I walk them through the ways they can do this. So I say there's 4 ways to sell and buy in our market. And so the first way is to do a leaseback agreement. And I explain the pros and cons of that. And I basically say, you know what you sold your house for. It allows you to be non-contingent. Once your house is totally sold, you've got the money in your bank account. You're now a tenant in your own home. That's perfect. Here's the cons of this. You can't always get a leaseback agreement. You may only get 2 offers on your house, and neither of those buyers are willing to let you occupy after closing. And so if this is your plan and you don't have another plan in place, then if it doesn't work out, then what's your plan, right? So this is a great plan. And when it is ultra competitive, this is typically an option, but we do run into situations where it's not an option. And I think the more important one that's not ideal for people in this situation is that with the lack of inventory we have, I don't want you to be in a situation where your house is sold, you're renting from your new buyer, and you have a ticking clock of 60 days to locate and close on your home and vacate your current property. That's the scarier one with a lack of inventory, is just maybe having to settle for a home you don't love, or putting everything in storage all of a sudden, moving in with family. And guess what? Now the client is upset, and no matter how great you took care of them, they're not happy, because this is just a very, very stressful situation. So it's an option. It's not my favorite option for all those reasons.
And I think if you do the leaseback, Grant and I have a listing coming up, and that's what they want to do so that they can be non-contingent when they buy. But we've gone over this with them, and they, just to really stress it, if you don't get a lease back, or if you don't find a house in time, do you have somewhere you can go? And that's something that we really make sure, because it's not going to be a good option if you don't have that covered.
Exactly. And it's cumbersome. That kind of brings us to our next option, which is a double move. And I always say this is no one's favorite. No one wants to do this. Literally, it's everyone's least favorite. However, the pro of the double move is you have no rush on your timeline. You're not forced to find your replacement home, except maybe you're sick of living with your parents when you're in your 40s, let's say. Nobody wants to do that, but it removes that ticking clock that the leaseback agreement has. But the double move does allow you to qualify non-contingent because you've completely sold your house. So now you're non-contingent. You're basically a renter, or you're in your parents' basement, and it allows you to be non-contingent. But the cons are it's expensive, it's cumbersome, and not everyone wants to take their pets and their children and all of their belongings and try to live in an interim housing. It's just, nobody wants to do that. And so it is everybody's least favorite. And so I think that if you can avoid it, it's great. The other thing about leaseback agreement and double move, in my opinion, is you explain these things to people and you're like, okay, this is our outlet. This is what we want to do. And then they're like, well, you know what? I found a house. I love it. Brooke just showed it to me and it's amazing. And I'm like, well, did you sell your house yet? Because we talked about like either doing a lease back agreement or a double move. And they're like, not yet. And then Brooke's calling me, is there any way to remove their contingency? That's where we end up, is basically when I give them like, this is our plan. We're going to do a lease back or we're going to do a double move. Notoriously, the home of their dreams pops on the market. And Brooke calls me and says, how do we remove the contingency? Or how do we, yeah, because like, yeah, their house is under contract, but we're still contingent, right? Until the house completely sells and the cash is in their bank account, we're still technically contingent. And then the client and broker asking me how to remove the contingency. So basically the fourth option, which is something that our team has a very high cheer for, is helping clients navigate through this situation with a bridge loan. So how I explain it to clients is, this is my favorite option, provided you're comfortable with it and you qualify. But basically the bridge loan option means that you get pre-approved with a bridge loan. You get to stay in your current home, comfy, cozy, pre-approved until the perfect house pops up. And then when it does, we can be very aggressive to go after that house. And I will do the bridge loan like at the same time that I do your mortgage. So I already pre-approved them for the bridge up front. I tell them, this is how much lendable equity I can give you. This will be your down payment on the new home. And I show them one of those presentations that's like, okay, here's your payment. After the bridge loan, makes your down payment. And this is what it looks like after you sell your house, you pay off your mortgage, you pay off the bridge, you take that additional equity and you can either recast, and here's what that looks like, or you can refinance with my free refinance if you want to hold on to that money from the sale of your home and get your mortgage payment down even further when the rates drop. So I'm like painting a picture for the clients about the bridge loan and helping them feel like this is your best option. I know it might feel scary. The other thing I explain is Brooke and I do this all the time. So you don't have to worry about like double payments. We can't obviously guarantee no double payments, but we can take a very calculated approach to how we write your contract based on the data about the home you're selling, right? Like if Brooke and Grant are looking at the sale of their home and they're saying average days on market is 20 days in their neighborhood, and they're looking at the comps and they're having dialogue with these clients and saying, okay, I think your house would move really, really quickly if you listed it at X. And the client's like, I'm willing to do that to get this house, right? Like they're basically committing to a list price. Then maybe you don't even need the bridge loan. Like if we offer a third, let's say we write an offer with a bridge loan and we say we're going to close in 30 days. And then you get your house under or on the market next week and under contract and it closes before we need to close, then we just do away with the bridge loan. We don't even need it anymore. And Brooke and I have had circumstances like that.
Or if you get it, your house might close fast enough that you don't even see a payment.
Exactly.
The closing costs in the bridge loan, which is very minimal to get the house you want, but likely you don't even make a payment on the bridge loan.
Yeah, you pay a per diem interest and it's nothing, guys. Like the per diem interest on a bridge loan is $21 a day for every $100,000 that you borrow of your equity. It's nothing. So clients have these misconceptions about a bridge loan and like, I'm going to have double payments and I'm going to have all these costs. And once I explain it all to them, this is how it works. This is how much it costs. What I say to people is having a house to sell and buying a house in our market, no matter what, costs you extra money. Even if you got a contingent offer accepted, you're still going to pay a premium for that house if you're contingent. Would you agree, Brooke?
Really? Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're going to pay a premium to be contingent. You're going to pay extra money for a lease back agreement. You're going to pay extra money. I mean, lease back, maybe not, but if you end up in interim housing because you ran out of time, then you're going to pay extra money. A double move has extra money. The bridge loan is minimal. That interest cost is $21 a day. And a lot of my clients are only making, a partial bridge payment before their house sells. the cost of the bridge is really cheap too. It's like for every $100,000 that they borrow, it's $500 in closing costs. So it's not this outrageously priced thing that I think a lot of agents have this conception about. It's a relatively inexpensive mechanism that's designed exactly for what we need. So I'm going to share with you an example. So let's say Brooke and I write an offer today on a highly competitive house, and we need to close really fast. So they find the house of their dreams, they're pre-approved for a bridge, and we've got to close in 10 days. So we write an offer this weekend, closing in 10 days. Let's say we're closing in, I don't know, the 7th of April, and I'm spitfiring a little bit. Let's say April 11th is when we're closing, because that's by the time I'll have a contract, it's about 10 days. I can get the bridge loan done and close in 10 days, provided I have all of this, every client's stuff up front, and I've pre-approved them with that bridge. So we can be super aggressive and competitive in that multiple offer situation with the bridge loan. And we can also offer appraisal gap and all that, because generally the bridge loan is a nice size down payment. So the appraisal gap situation I showed you earlier is something that we can be competitive with. Versus what I see a lot of people try to do in a contingency situation where they're trying to remove a contingency is just do a very minimal down payment of 5%. Okay, can you come up with 5% or 10% out of your 401k, or can you get a gift from someone or something like that? And that removes your opportunity to be super competitive on appraisal gap, and can you get that done really fast? Can you get the 401k loan and close in 10 days? So the bridge loan option allows you to be super competitive, wait for the house of your dreams to pop on the market, very low cost, in my opinion, and still end up where you want to be long-term with your finances. So I think the bridge loan is the most underutilized thing that we have to our advantage as realtors.
And we'll look at that too. Like, we're never going to suggest the bridge loan on a house that we think is going to have a hard time selling. So, you really pay attention to what their house is that they want to list. Kind of when we are offering that, a house super far out that just is a very different one might not be the best option, but we go over all that with them too.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to what we've been talking about with each one of these topics is Brooke and I strategize. We don't put our clients in a risky position without having done all of our due diligence and all of our kind of strategizing around where we are taking risk. How big of a risk is it? How calculated of a risk is it? And then we're presenting it to the clients of like, here's your worst case scenario. But we do that in a very organized fashion where I'm not scaring them in the pre-approval appointment. I'm talking about their options. I'm making them feel that there are options out there for you. I met with some clients last night that were going to use their bank to buy a house. And they were adamant with my partner, I'm using my bank to buy this house. And my partner was like, will you please talk to Jessica about a bridge loan? And I met with them last night. I did a consultation and they were like, we had no idea this was an option. And so like, you just have to kind of, again, lead your client and say, Jessica and her team, this is their cheer. They're really good at this. And I want you to at least understand your options to buy when you have a house to sell. So we did talk about why a bridge loan. When I get a referral and a client has a house to sell and we're doing a pre-approval appointment, you don't have to tell me like, hey, can you pre-approve them for a bridge? Because I know what the market conditions are and I'm already looking at that and assessing, okay, this is an important thing that we need for sure. And it doesn't mean you have to execute this, but I want to educate you on it. I did qualify you for it if you decide you want it. And they might say, you know what, I'll think about that. And guess what? They'll call me a month later and they'll be like, Brooke and I just saw the house of our dreams. Can you tell me more about that bridge option? So I like plant the seeds with them up front because when they need it, they're like, okay, we love that house. We want to buy that house. And I know some people recommend a HELOC to their clients instead of a bridge. And I always like to explain why one versus the other. So HELOCs are intended to be taken out as a longer term loan. And when you go to apply for a HELOC, you're telling your bank or credit union, this is my primary home. and I intend to live in it and stay in it. When you apply, you're signing paperwork that you're going to live in that house for at least 12 months as your primary home. It typically takes 3 to 6 weeks to process that loan. And nothing about a HELOC is super fast, in my opinion. There are outlets that are fast, but they're more expensive, even way more expensive than a bridge. And again, there's like this ethical component to it where you're taking it out on a primary home. Now, if you tell the bank up front, hey, I'm going to sell this house in the very immediate future, and I'm not going to be occupying it after this, and they still give you a HELOC, great. But that, in my experience, has been that's not what banks and credit unions are offering consumers HELOCs for. So this is a great solution for a home you plan to retain. My business partner I met with yesterday with his wife, he already had an open HELOC on his house for $100 grand that's just sitting there. And he wants to keep that house as a rental. He's had the HELOC open. That actually is not a bad mechanism now for him to be able to use it to, do whatever he wants with it at that point. But what I find is that clients find the house of their dreams. They're not pre-approved. They need to be non-contingent. And a HELOC at that option, in my opinion, is not an option at that point. HELOCs are a little bit lower cost than a bridge, but again, those bridge costs I went over with you are pretty marginal. When you apply for a bridge loan, you're telling the bank, hey, I'm selling this house in the immediate future, and I'm not going to live in it as my primary home anymore. So you're being very upfront about what your intentions are. The bridge loan takes 1 to 2 weeks to process. It's a great solution for a home you intend to sell. And most clients don't make a single mortgage or interest payment. They make like a per diem on the bridge until the bridge is paid off. But in our market, with how quickly houses are selling for the right house, this is a great option. Anything else you want to add on the bridge loan, Brooke?
No, I mean, I think the one thing I have heard is a lot of lenders will talk about the HELOC because they don't know how to offer the bridge. So that's when they say a HELOC is better. It's only because they don't actually have that option to do a bridge loan.
Yeah, I think you're 100% spot on that. If you want more information on bridge loans, I'd love your opportunity to chat with you about, I do think a lot of real estate agents should have a good bridge lender. If you don't have a good bridge lender, I would love to chat with you about how our team operates more on that. Let's talk about some seller subsidy and permanent buy down options. Buying down the rate is something that has been, I heard a statistic recently that 60% of the transactions in December of 2022 had some kind of buy down. 60% of transactions. And you imagine some of those transactions are cash. So it's like the majority of transactions have some sort of buy down. I think that this is another area where I think real estate agents should leave it to their lending partner to strategize the best type of buy down, because there's multiple types. So I'm going to educate you a little bit today on the varying types of buy downs. Before I jump to that, I just want to say, as we look at interest rates, when interest rates are 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, that the lowest you can buy it down on like a permanent buy down is generally about 1% lower. Maybe 1.25%. You can spend a boatload of money and get that rate down 1 to 1.25%, and it costs a lot of money to get it down that low. Okay, and that's something that we can sometimes negotiate with the seller, or maybe the client can pay for. Some loan programs limit the amount of costs you can have up front. So even if you wanted to pay 50 grand to buy your rate down to 1.25%. Your loan program prohibits you from doing that, because we have something called we have a threshold for loan costs that's acceptable by the loan agencies. So clients basically get stuck in this position where, okay, today's rate's 6.5. I could pay 30 grand to buy my rate down between the seller's money and my money, but it's only going to get me to 5.75 or 5.5 or 5.25, whatever. So I think when rates are in the 6s and 7s, I don't think a permanent buy down is the way to go. I think that a seller subsidy is a better option when we're in the 6 and 7% interest rate range. Now, seller subsidy programs, commonly known as 321 or 21 or 10, there's multiple types of seller subsidy programs. I do think that real estate agents and lenders shouldn't use 2-1 buy down or 1-0 buy down or 3-2-1 buy down, because that doesn't mean anything to a consumer. And it just ends up in an already confusing time. It ends up just adding more confusion, in my opinion. So what I do, I don't even say 3-2-1 or 2-1 or 1-0. I say seller subsidy program. And I say, okay, there's a 3-year seller subsidy program, a 2-year seller subsidy program, and a 1-year seller subsidy program. And so I show my clients in the pre-approval appointment, if I find a client that wants a $3,500 payment, and I'm like, okay, your payment on that 665 house is 4,200. When I say that, and they look at me with a deer in headlights, and like I can feel the fear coming off of them, then I say, you know what? We can ask Brooke to send you a list of properties that have been active on the market for 2 or 3 weeks. Again, there's less and less in today's market, but they are out there. So if you can be flexible a little bit on area and the vision that you have for your house, if you have some flexibility there and you just want to own and have an appreciating asset, then maybe we could have Brooke send you a list of those properties, and we could consider this seller subsidy program. And I'm still getting several clients a month approved with a seller subsidy program, even in our current market. So I show clients the cost, and I say, you know, the 3-year seller subsidy, it's an expensive program. So I don't personally think in today's market, with the data showing that most buyers are buying a house right at list price or even a smidge above, I don't think us getting a $30,000 concession on a $700,000 house is really going to be accepted. So I think we need to kind of strategize either a 2 or a 1-year seller subsidy. And so I show them the varying costs, and then I show them the impact of the subsidy. So for example, this particular client, and this loan amount is higher than my sales price, so I need to have a better attention to detail. But let's say that the sales price is $750 and my loan amount is $705. Okay, that's what my intention was. The loan amount at $705, the monthly payment is $44.59. That is their P&I payment only. $44.59 is P&I only. And so basically, once we add property taxes and homeowners insurance and mortgage insurance and HOA and everything that might come up with that property, now our client is over $5,000 a month. If they're telling me, hey, I want to be at $4,000 a month or $3,500 a month, you know, we're not even close. We're not even in the ballpark. And again, I can feel the just, you know, like maybe this isn't the right time for me to buy oozing through my Zoom call with them. So if I show them this strategy and I say, okay, this is a way, if we could negotiate a 3-year seller subsidy, you could get a $3,100 P&I payment for the first year. Or if we did a 2-year seller subsidy, you could get a $3,500 P&I payment for the first year. We add your property taxes, homeowners insurance, mortgage insurance, HOA, etc. And now we're somewhere between $4,000 and $4,200. Is that better? Do you feel better with that? Yeah, I feel better with that than $5,000. Like that's a stretch we might be able to make. Okay, cool. Then I call Brooke. The minute I hang up with them in their pre-approval appointment, I'm going to call Brooke and I'm going to say, they're super qualified. Their debt to income ratios are low. They have money. They're just nervous. Like they really are feeling crunched by this mortgage payment. What do you think about this? And she's going to look at the search area that she already talked to them about. And, you know, it's going to be, we're looking in this part of Denver. And Brooke's going to be able to say, like, how do you handle that, Brooke, when I call you and I say, okay, this is what we have going on with this client?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's usually just you making them feel comfortable with that payment. And a lot of times, I think when they originally say they want to be at a lower payment, and then we walk into that house and they're like, this one's perfect. And you go over those payments and you're kind of like, well, this is really where you're going to be. I think that they finally realize like they can make it work and that payment works. The other thing that I like that we've been doing with quite a few of our clients is just doing the P&I, and they know they get, they get these bonuses at the end of every year. And they're like, you know what, we'd rather just do the P&I. We like that payment. We'll pay the taxes and interest, or the homeowner's insurance. We'll pay that at the end of the year. But that's another thing that we've been doing a lot to get, the payment to where they're comfortable.
Yeah, one of the things I always look at with our clients, and Brooke, you and I have had a handful of like jumbo clients that are like more affluent. And
Right.
what a lot of those people have in common is they have like bonus income or, some other maybe restricted stock income, or they have like this variable income that comes in throughout the year that they don't necessarily want to count on. But what they could do is if they have any portion of their income that's variable, we can say, hey, one idea to keep your expenses low is to just pay your P&I payment monthly, which is this. And then every April you would owe your taxes. That would be this bill annually. And then every April you would owe your homeowner's insurance, and it would be this year. And then they're like, well, I get my bonus in January. I could just set aside that money to pay that. And that feels better. That monthly payment for P&I feels better. And clients definitely like those suggestions.
Well, and we've had a couple do that, but I don't, if you don't tell them that, they don't know that's an option. They just see the entire payment that they have to pay. So which is the difference? You give them options, and that is an option.
For sure. For sure. So just showing a client like a 3-year seller subsidy payment compared to a no subsidy payment, it's a huge difference, guys. It's almost $1,200 on a $700,000 house with 10% down. So yes, a 3-year seller subsidy is pretty tough in today's market. I couldn't agree more. Are there houses we can still do it on? Sure, there are. So I think we have to customize our strategy to each client. And then, we can show them a 2-year seller subsidy. I also show them, here's your first year seller subsidy. Here's year 1. Here's the refinance, or here's year 1, year 2 refinance. Again, I'm showing them the story of what they can expect in the future. I'm not guaranteeing interest rates are going to come down, but I can give them all the data on why I believe they will come down and let them make an informed decision on, the speculation on why interest rates are going to come down. And if I show them the whole story, here's year 1 on the seller subsidy that Brooke and I are going to get you under contract on, you should be able to refinance for sure by the 18-month and for free by me. I'm going to show them that refinance on that 30-year fixed rate in the future to say, here's how this looks. And the best part of the seller subsidy program is that the money that you negotiated with the seller, that Brooke helped you negotiate, goes into a bank account with the lender, and it subsidizes your mortgage payment monthly. And then when you go to do this refinance, any unused portion of that subsidy actually goes to pay the principal balance of your loan down. And we show them that. So basically, you're not losing the seller's money. And that's why the seller subsidy makes so much more sense than a permanent buy down. Because if rates were 6.5 and we bought them down with the seller's money to 5 3/4, and then rates fall to 4.5 in October or November, they're still going to refi. So any amount of money that Brooke negotiated with the seller to buy their rate down is gone. They had a tax write-off with some of that money, but they don't recoup any of that money. So that's why when rates are in the 6s and 7s, a seller subsidy is so much more impactful. And then a permanent buy down. I created this permanent buy down for my pre-approval packet. And this was an actual house that one of my partners had in Lakewood that was listed at $925. And this was like this was last year sometime when rates were a little bit lower. So rates were at 5 1/8 for a jumbo loan. So this was sometime last year. And basically, the purchase price on the house was $925. And I was showing the buyer, okay, if you ask for a $30,000 price reduction in the home and you pay the market rate, which was 5.125 at the time for the jumbo loan, here's your monthly payment. And then when you can buy down a rate that you'll never refinance. So this is the time when rates are in the low 5s is when we're going to definitely be pivoting to the permanent buy down. Now you can be at $4,100 a month. It's a $365 a month savings. And this is a loan you'll never refinance. If you take $365 a month and you times that by 30 years worth of payments, it's over $130,000 worth of savings. So basically, clients don't know that, wow, I can save that much money by structuring my deal that way, because I think a lot of clients are wired to say, I don't want to pay $925 for a house that's been sitting. I would prefer to pay $895, and they're just, that's their instinct, is to pay a lower price. But if we present them with data that's like, no, pay the $925 because we're in a market that is pretty stable with property values, pay the $925, take the actual buy down money to buy your interest rate down permanently, and then never have to refinance. That's another thing, is that it's expensive to hold a loan for a period of time that you plan to refi. Because when you go to refinance, every dollar you paid in interest towards the first loan, you don't get that money back. So if let's say they went in at 5 1/8, and they'd close the loan at $895, 5 1/8, and then they still refinance a year later at 4.5, let's say. Now they've spent interest on a $716,000 loan at 5 1/8 for 12 months. So let's say 716 times 5.125%. That's $37,000 that they paid in interest on that loan just to go and start the 30-year cycle over, and they don't recoup the 37 grand. So as you can tell, like, the strategy about when to do the buy down, one, it's dependent on where rates are today. Two, it's dependent on the client's short and long-term goals. So having the consultative approach to what makes sense for you is really, really important. But permanent buy downs, in my opinion, we're going to pivot to that direction once rates hit about 5.5%. I think is going to be that threshold. Brooke, we're getting several buy downs still accepted. I mean, we just had one when we got them under contract last month in February.
Right.
How many dollars of concession did we get for them?
We did 35,000.
35,000. And we bought our client's interest rate down to 5.625. Now, this was a jumbo loan, and unfortunately, you can't do a seller subsidy program on a jumbo loan, which is unfortunate. So we did do a permanent buy down because that's what made sense to the client. I gave them multiple options to choose from, and that's the one they chose to feel comfortable enough to buy the house. But we got that accepted in February of this year when we're seeing multiple offers. And so these structures and programs are still very, very applicable to our current market conditions.
It's hard to know which one we think the buyer will choose, because when you give them options, we might think one like that maybe we would choose it, but when you explain everything, that's why I think it's so important to actually give them options, because sometimes they choose the one that maybe we wouldn't choose, but they feel so much more comfortable with that.
For sure. Rate buy down combined with an appraisal gap. So we can get really, really creative, and we're running short on time. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I don't want to miss the opportunity for Brooke to go through her part on what she does with a listing agent and her cover letter, etc. So I'm going to just show this presentation that I put together for, okay. So the list price of this home was $700,000. Okay. And basically this client wanted a seller subsidy program. I am showing the same interest rate as this, but basically I'm just showing the concept of the appraisal gap. So the first year's mortgage payment would be lower with the seller subsidy, but I'm just showing you guys, basically the loan amount is a little bit higher because the purchase price is higher. So we took the seller subsidy cost and we rolled it into the price of the home. Okay, so we're in a competitive offer situation. We're going higher in price, but we're asking for a 2-year seller subsidy. Okay, and so basically I'm just showing you an appraisal gap. The client's payment is $59 higher, Their loan amount and interest rate are the same, and their cash to close is the same. Now, their monthly payment is lower because they have the seller subsidy, but I wanted to kind of show you like the interest rate doesn't change. The cash to close doesn't change. So we can get pretty creative and still be competitive. Now, is this going to work in a circumstance where you have 10 offers? No, because a listing agent and seller are not going to go for an offer that has any concessions, regardless of how high the price is. But in circumstances where there's 1 or 2 offers, I get people under contract like this all the time, where we basically protect the seller's position on appraisal, but roll the cost of the subsidy into the price of the home. And it works beautifully. And so with appraisal gap coverage combined with the seller subsidy program, we are solving to an affordability problem with our clients. And we're also solving to the seller's net position on their contract to make sure that we have a deal that we can put together. Brooke, do you want to talk about anything about that before I move on to your cover letter slide?
No, I mean, I think though, yeah, because we've done some of the deals where you want 25,000 seller concession, but as long as we go 25 over and we do the appraisal gap to completely protect them. And I think it does take a little bit of explaining from you to the listing agent on the seller concession plus the appraisal gap. Then, I mean, if it's not a ton of offers, we still can win it.
Yeah, it takes explaining by both of us. So in your cover letter, you're going to kind of explain to a listing agent what we're doing and why. And I don't think saying, hey, this client is at the top of their affordability price point, like that's everyone. So that shouldn't be a red flag, in my opinion, to a listing agent, because everyone's in that boat. Even our most affluent clients are feeling crunched by interest rates right now. So to say, hey, this is the payment that feels affordable to them and makes them feel comfortable buying this home, as long as you explain it, and we're trying to protect your seller's net. So that leads me to the next thing, which is basically Brooke's cover letter. So Brooke CCs me on every single offer that we write together. We have a routine. I send her a pre-approval letter specific to the offer we're writing. We've already strategized every component of that offer together. Then we've talked to our client to make them feel comfortable with each aspect of that offer. And then Brooke writes the most killer cover letter. And Brooke, we are pretty short on time. I want to leave a couple minutes for questions, but I'm going to have you go through your cover letter really quick. And then I'm going to also have you go through your communication with the listing agent that you already kind of touched on briefly.
Yeah, so I think the cover letter, I want that listing agent to, in their email, when they first see my offer come in, I want them to not even have to open the offer, but see everything important that this offer entails. So one of the, main things is I've copied Jess. This is my preferred lender. We've done this many deals in the past 12 months. I put that at the very top because now they feel secure with us. And highlight any of the main points. So, the price, how much over, how much they're putting down, what kind of loan, because if they see, conventional in, the email over FHA, they automatically feel better. And then a big thing is any contingencies that we're waiving. So if we have any, appraisal, loan deadlines, inspection stuff, I just want them to see all of that right up front without even opening the offer. Yeah. And then how much the clients love the home. And obviously just reiterating, like they, and I might say kind of, a little bit something about, I guess it's not as much anymore, but during COVID, we were really stressing like their jobs, they are solid. They're not going anywhere, because that was a big stress, which it could be again too, are they going to keep these jobs?
And then when Brooke submits, I immediately text the listing agent when I see it come through, because I don't want to call immediately. I want to give them a second. So I have a text that I do that's like, hey, my name's Jessica Uphoff. I work with Neo Home Loans. If I don't know them, I work with Neo Home Loans. Brooke Cartwright just submitted an offer to you for these clients. She's the realtor. I'm the lender. I'm available to you tonight, tomorrow, to answer any questions that you or your seller may have regarding their financing. We have verified all the funds for their offer. Like I use the same verbiage on every single one, because we do that on every single client. And so we have a process and it works. Like she CCs me and I know that's okay. It's my role now. It's in my court and this is what I need to do. So having that process together is really important. And then what I see some agents do with their cover letter, because I'll like beg an agent, please CC me, because I'm trying to have that process that I have with Brooke, with all of my partners. And I'll just say, hey, thanks for your offer, or here's my offer. Like, thank you for your consideration. And it's like one sentence. And I think that maybe that works in, October of 22 when you only get one offer, but it doesn't work in April of 23 when we do have some multiple offers going on. So I think like just taking a few extra minutes, spending some time to explain who you are, who the lender is, that your client loves the home, et cetera, like Brooke said, is really powerful. Really quick, Brooke, communication with the listing agent. How do you are by far the best agent I've ever experienced as it relates to building rapport with the listing agent, making them feel safe, and winning over their affection. How do you do that?
So I think first off is just getting to know how they like to communicate. I've had it say in the MLS, do not call or text, email only. And if you start calling them, you automatically just kind of piss them off. So it's really just following exactly, if you call and they text back, don't call them anymore, only text. Figure out how they like to communicate. And honestly, like one of the biggest things is become their best friend. Like just be nice to them. Don't be rude, because if you're rude right off the bat, they figure this is how the whole transaction is going to go. And they will tell their clients that like this agent seems difficult to work with. So really just having, a really good relationship with the listing agent from the beginning and staying in communication with them the entire time. So, we might go in with a certain offer, but I'm communicating with that agent the whole time, making sure I know exactly where they're at, so that we can resubmit, and then getting as much information out of this listing agent so that I know what's important to the sellers, so that our buyers can, be really strong on what's important to them.
Yeah, you do an amazing job, because when I talk to the listing agent, they already love you. You've already done a really great job of building rapport and trust. I want to take a moment just to go through a few questions, and we might run over. Again, we're recording this, so you have to jump off. Please watch the answers to the questions on the recording. So the first question is, at Compass, we're required to recommend 3 lenders. How do we navigate that? So you guys are at Compass, right? You and Grant are at Compass. And I know from talking to Grant, I'll let you speak on this too, but basically Grant says, I have 3 lenders, like here's the, even he can say, here's the 3 that I have, but here's what I would do. I would call this one, and here's why. Is that kind of?
Yeah. So we'll say, we have multiple lenders that you guys can choose. A lot of our clients have been really happy with Jessica Uphoff and her team. We can refer those 3, but the main thing is they want to know, who do we like to use? Who do we think gives, the options, and just who we think will do kind of the best job for them. So it's not about just referring the 3 lenders. It's more about taking it a step further and saying, here's lenders to reach out to. But a lot of our clients are very happy with, Jessica Uphoff's team.
I also think that you have a specific thing that you might be saying, like, her and her team are great at bridge. And because you're going to maybe need a solution to be, to understand how to buy and sell in our market, here's why I want you to start with her.
Right.
Or, you're looking in a price point that tends to be our most competitive price point. And her team are just phenomenal at strategizing with our clients to help them succeed in a multiple offer situation. So I think also saying we have multiple options for you. You're allowed to use whoever you want. And, we have built great relationships with fabulous lender partners professionally. But if this was my own transaction, here's what I would do.
Right.
I think they love to hear that. Like Grant says that a lot. Like, I use Jessica for all my own personal transactions.
And that's what I've said too. Like, we even say the same thing for, inspectors. We give them 3 options. And I say, I personally have used this person on my personal home. I think when you say who you personally use and trust, that goes a long way.
For sure. Which site can we find the LO production? So we'll send that to everybody that, is asking about that in the chat. So we'll make sure to send you an email with like, here's the link for you to participate in that service. I would highly recommend it. You can look up real estate agents and lenders throughout the country. So if you're going to like refer someone to another part of the country, you can do some due diligence on lenders and real estate agents nationally. So it's a really powerful site. How do you handle, Brooke, how do you handle when you use an escalation clause and the seller's agent wants to call for highest and best without providing redacted documentation of where the offers are actually at?
So, I mean, if you're still in the, the offer process, a lot of, and that's something that a lot of, the listing agents do. Everybody's come in with their escalations and now they go back and say highest and best. It is really hard when the listing agent just is so blind about where offers are at, but a lot of them will tell you, hey, the highest offer is around this, but like not every offer is equal. Maybe they're missing some appraisal gap. Maybe they're missing this. So if they won't tell you anything, it is a little bit hard. But that's usually where maybe you then need to take out your escalation and just go up to that price with no escalation, and just something that you have to talk to the buyers about. But yeah, a lot of them will call for highest and best, and you pretty much know you probably need to just go straight to that top point.
Yeah. And remember the other 9 levers you have besides just price, right? Make sure you write a really, really solid offer. Okay. Could you please email the link to the prior recording of the event Script-Tacular 100%? We will send that out to anyone that wants that. How do you work with appraisal waivers? So every weekend, because a lot of times we're writing offers on the weekend, we have a team of 3 people on call. So I don't take weekend coverage lightly. Like I don't just have one LO that might answer their phone from a boat or something like that. Like we really have a team available on call at their desks to help with people writing offers, fast tracks, whatever we need to do. And we do run the loan every single time through automated underwriting to see if we get a waiver. If we get a waiver, then we can remove our appraisal dates. Now, keep in mind that waivers can go away. So it's really, really important. Like if your underwriter changes your income calculation, which is, it happens. Like, our team is one of the best in the nation. We're very good at understanding how an underwriter is going to calculate income, but they will have a difference of opinion and say, hey, I reduced your income to X and here's why. And then you run the loan through automated underwriting after the underwriter made those changes, and now your waiver is gone. It's like terrifying. So we just have to make sure we all understand a waiver, but they are amazing. Waivers are great. We're getting tons of waivers. With the appraisal issues we have in the United States with having a shortage of appraisers, the loan agencies are being forced to change legislation about using appraisers. And waivers are just becoming increasingly popular when the data supports the value of that home. So waivers are something that our team checks on every single offer. Before we even like present an appraisal gap, we're saying, okay, you have a waiver, like here's how this would look. So that's a really important point there. Can you send me the PowerPoint slide deck? Yes, we sure can, Robert. Did you cover number 3, contingency? We did. So basically we said contingency is something that in today's market is pretty tough to get approved. I think that in 2022, there was a pocket of time that I did have a handful of clients be able to get their offer accepted contingent. But what was even tricky about that is they were struggling to get their home under contract at that time. So even though they went under contract contingent, those deals were a little sketchy at the time because their house was sitting on the market without offers. So we had that window of time in 2022 when we could get a contingency accepted that we were struggling to maybe get the replacement home under contract. So the way I present it to clients is it always could be a possibility with the right opportunity, but we need to plan. What is your backup plan if we can't? Because what I have found is that contingencies are harder and harder the lower the inventory is, and we're definitely in a pretty low inventory market for now. Andrew asked, how does a bridge loan rates and features compare to a program like Knock Home Swap? It's a good question. I work with a big team here locally in Denver, and they have these outlets. And so I have these conversations with them. So again, just as a reminder, The bridge loan costs $500 for every $100,000 borrowed. And the per day interest for every $100,000 was about $22 for interest per day. So in my opinion, it is a relatively inexpensive solution for a pretty complicated situation. So I do think the bridge loan definitely blows those programs away on cost. I don't know enough of those programs to effectively say this is why I wouldn't use them for sure. But I do think when I can close in 10 days with a bridge and have it, I'm just going to strategize with Brooke to make sure we effectively protect our client's interest. I just think it's such a phenomenal solution to that situation that I don't know why you would need to pay a really hefty fee up front for one of those loan programs, which is my understanding of them. Can you put up the last slide up, please? The one about communicating with the listing agent. Absolutely, I sure can. We'll do that here right at the end. Can you forward the slides? We sure can. What is the list of the 9 levers? There's actually 10 levers, and we will be able to send that to you, Robert. That's no problem. Thank you for I would like to receive a recording of Script-Tacular. If we refer our clients to Jessica Uphoff, will our clients get Jessica as their lender? That's a great question. So as one of the top lenders in the United States, I do still meet with my clients. And so do I meet with every client? Here's how we do it. I have a gal that her entire job is to take care of our referrals. That's her whole job. So what I find is that lenders, you send them a referral and you text it to them, or they text you, the referral does, and then they're like saving a deal one day and they like forget about the client, or you might get lost in the hustle. So to solve to that problem, I put someone on my team who's amazing in charge of taking care of our referrals and making sure that they feel cared for, they're getting their questions answered. If they want to understand the why behind, can I do a soft pull or do I have to do a hard pull, and all those questions that new referrals to our team have, this gal on my team who's a rock star manages those. She manages my calendar and the other LO's calendar in our office. And basically we do it based on the client's availability and needs. So if a client calls and says, oh my gosh, I was referred to you by Brooke and I just found a house and I want to write an offer and I need a bridge loan, and she told me to call you, if I'm sitting in back-to-back meetings for the next 3 hours, I'm not going to let that client lose that house because I'm unavailable to Brooke. So I'm going to shoot Brooke a text and say, Soraya just booked your client, with Oliver on my team. Oliver's amazing. And Brooke's worked with Oliver, so she knows him. Like, everyone on my team is really great. And the reason is because we do a lot of transactions on our team together. We do them all the same way. Everything I went over with you today, every person on my team kid gloves these things the way that I do. And we talk about them as a team all the time to make sure that it's uniform from each one of us. But we don't hold up a client waiting on me. Just like any really successful real estate team, the team lead isn't taking every client and doing the showings and doing their listing appointments. Like, you have to work as a team. And so, yeah, I meet with a lot of the clients that come into our office. But if a client is like, hey, I'm only available on Thursday evenings at 5 o'clock, and let's say it would take 2 Thursdays to get in with me, Soraya is going to say, would you rather meet with Caleb? He's phenomenal. Like, you'll love Caleb. And we give the client the option. But that's a really, really great question. And I do, some of my top partners do say to me, like, I just appreciate that you are involved, because I think a lot of team leads that run a team like I do don't do any production. And they're just not in the weeds of what's going on in the market right now. And I think that I love what I do, and I still want to meet with clients and still want to be helping my partners, allows me to continually be talking to my team every day about what I'm seeing and casting vision for them on what we need to do to solve our business partners' problems and our clients' problems in the current market. Slide deck. Yep, we'll send that. Recording we'll send. I would love to have the link for Lender Realtor Lookup. No problem. When will you have another DISC class? That's literally my favorite class to teach. I love that class. So I will definitely get that on the schedule. And then someone said, not a question, just wanted to say this was amazing. Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge. So Brooke, you are amazing. I brag about you so much. I love referring you to clients that I meet because one, I watch you get people under contract so fast because you're just so good. And then you care, you're detail oriented, you help strategize with me. You're just such a top level agent. If anyone wants to personally talk to Brooke or Grant Muller, they will make themselves available. Yep, Brooke's business partner, Grant, is a coach. He's a real estate coach. And they just have a phenomenal approach to the business, and they're just such great humans with good hearts. And so Brooke definitely will make herself available to anyone that would like to chat with her at all. And in addition to that, I would love the opportunity to chat with any agent that listened today and wants more information about whatever we do. You can email me at jessica.uphoff@neohomeloans.com. We will have everything that we had available today. We can send it out to everyone that asked for it. You can have our slide deck, the recording, the Script-Tacular recording, the data about looking up lenders and realtors. We'd be happy to share all of this with you. My goal in this business is to bring extreme value to the real estate community. And that's how I've grown my business. I'm not a lender that just calls and asks real estate agents to go to coffee. That is not who I am or how I like to show up. I like to show up actually showing up for you and solving real life struggles that you're having in the market and helping you and your clients win. And I know Brooke is in the same vein, that she just wants to add value to her clients and help them win. So thanks for being a part of this today, Brooke. You are so valuable to the community. Thank you for everyone that took time out of their day to be a part of our webinar. And I hope everyone has a phenomenal rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks.